Hi guys! So today I'm sharing with you how I make my delicious homemade mini chicken pot pies. These are great for taking to work or even just eating them at home, and because they're baked in mini sized tins, they're the perfect lunch size. They're individual chicken pot pies and I just love that. And you can customize these to your liking or for whoever you're making them for. You can bake them, freeze them, and then reheat one when you're ready to eat it or take it to work. And better yet, they are super easy to do. So let's get started. So the first thing I do is I take out my leftover rotisserie chicken, and I buy these at the grocery store. I buy a rotisserie chicken, have it for dinner, and then what doesn't get eaten, I just use for pot pie the next day. So I just pull apart all the pieces of chicken that are still good and I set them to the side. Once I have my pieces of chicken set to the side, I discard the rest, and then I start chopping up my pieces of chicken into smaller bite-sized pieces. I like it to be pretty small, but you can cut them into bigger chunks if that's what you prefer. Next, I place my chicken bites into a skillet that I've coated with olive oil, and then I start chopping up my carrots into bite-sized pieces. Again, I like my bites pretty small, but you do you. If you like bigger chunks, make them bigger. Once my carrots are done, I chop up some celery in the same fashion, and I put both into my skillet with the chicken. And this is where you can start customizing what you want to put into your pot pie. If you don't like celery, don't put it in. If you don't like carrots, don't put them in. Or if you only want a few carrots, just cut up a few pieces. Put in whatever you want to put into your chicken pot pie. Then I'm going to add in 1 small can of sweet corn, a small can of peas, some minced onion, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of celery salt, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic salt, 1 teaspoon of rosemary, and then I'm going to mix it all together before I add in 1 can of cream of chicken soup. Now I'm taking my skillet over to the stove and I'm going to cook it on low to medium heat, and I'm really just melting everything together and heating it all up. I'm not necessarily cooking anything. So I'm going to just stir it all around, give it a good stir, and then I'm going to add in maybe about 1/4 cup of chopped Colby Jack cheese, just because that's what I like to add into my pot pie. Then I'm going to add in 1/2 cup of chicken broth, 1/2 cup of milk, and I'm using vitamin D milk, whole milk, and 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Cream just makes everything better. It makes everything so much more decadent and delicious. So I just love adding it anytime I can. So I'm going to add it here, and then I'm going to stir everything together and place the lid on it so it can simmer for a bit. If yours is a little bit too thick, you can add in more chicken broth if you think you need to. Next, I'm going to add in just a little dollop of butter, and then I'm going to let that melt into everything else. And once it all appears to be melted together and creamed together, I'll give it just another little stir, and then I'm going to turn off the stove top, and I'm just going to let it sit until I'm ready to use it. Now I'm going to work on the dough, and I'm just using a store-bought pie crust or pie dough for this, and it can sometimes be a little bit of a pain to unroll it if it's not exactly the right temperature. It doesn't have to be perfect, just get it unrolled the best that you can and get it flat on your countertop. Once it's all unrolled and laying flat on your countertop, grab a pie tin and flip it over onto the dough, and then use a sharp knife to cut around it, but you want to leave a little bit of an edge so that you have something to work with, so don't cut it all off. The part that you've cut off, just put it to the side, we're going to use it later. Now flip your pie tin over and gently place your cut pie dough into the tin. It will be a little too big and it will have some extra folds and flaps, and that's perfectly fine. Part of the deliciousness of eating pot pie is the dough, or that crust, that yummy buttery crust. So just gently fold it down and into your tin. If you have any holes on the bottom or on the side, just grab some of that leftover dough from earlier that you cut off and just press it onto the hole. It's going to be filled up, so no one's ever going to see that. Our pie dough is now ready to be filled, so we're going to fill our pie maybe about 3/4 of the way to the top. We don't want to overfill it. Now is the fun part. If you like getting creative and having fun with your food and your dishes and stuff like that. I'm not a super great pie crust design maker person, but I do like to have fun with it and come up with different designs for my pies. So if you're making these for your kids, you might want to cut out some fun dinosaur shapes or some hearts or something like that that they like. For fall, you might want to cut out some leaf shapes and so on. For this one here, I'm going to cut out some heart shapes out of my crust, and I'm going to start adding them in different designs on each pot pie. This recipe makes about 4 of these mini pot pies. So I'm just folding over the edge on this one here. Not anything fancy really for this one. I'm just folding it over and pressing on it, making it look decent. And then I'm just going to brush on a little bit of egg wash and place on my heart shape and then move on to the next pie. Now I'm just going to keep repeating those steps until I run out of dough or I run out of filling. So I'm just going to flip over the tin, cut off the extra dough, flip it back over and place the dough inside, fill in any holes with extra dough that I cut off. And then I'm going to place the filling in 3/4 of the way up. And then I'm going to design the dough crust with my cutout shapes. If you don't want to get all fancy with the making of your pie crust, you don't have to. You can just roll out a plain top piece and place it over the pie shell and then press the edges together and bake it. You don't have to make them super fancy. I just enjoy doing it. And typically, if you're making it for another person, especially kids, they really appreciate the effort that you put into it. If you have any extra dough that's hanging over the edge of your pie, you can just trim it off using some kitchen shears or a knife, and then just press your edges together in whatever design you're going for. And the more you do this, the better and better your pies are going to start to look, the better and better you're going to get at making these cute little crusts. So it's great practice, and you can really get creative with each one to make each one different and perfect for the person that you're making it for. Once all of my pies are filled and decorated, I'm going to place them into the oven all together at 450 degrees for about 15 minutes or so. I'm just baking them long enough to cook the crust, really. So once it gets nice and golden brown, they're done, and I'm going to take them out. For some reason, I have no footage of them after they baked, but this is how they'll look. Slightly browned edges mean that they're done. Then I just let them cool completely, and then I wrap them in saran wrap, and then I wrap them in tin foil, and I place them into freezer bags that are clearly labeled with what they are and the date, and then I put them into the freezer. Then when I want one, I just pull it out when I need it.